What's up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I'm going to try to start a sew and chat series on this channel because I have not been able to really find time to sew a lot. So I figured if I break it down into maybe 30-minute sessions, I will be able to sew a little bit more. And so this will be my first video in a sew and chat. And so I'm just going to start sewing a project and chat about, a topic that's on my mind. And the topic that's on my mind today is married at first sight. So I'm going to start my timer. I'm going to shoot for 30 minutes and see how that goes. 30 minutes. So I'm going to be working on Simplicity 9287, which is a button-up blouse. I cut this out a couple months ago for the retreat, but I did not get around to sewing it, so I will try to sew it today. All right, so Married at First Sight is a reality dating TV show. Well, it's not a dating show because they are married, supposedly. It's a reality show where supposed experts match couples together based on what, the limited information that they know about the couples, and they get married at first sight. These people never meet beforehand, supposedly. I remember one season, someone, I think, knew somebody from before or had seen them before, but they don't know who they're marrying before they actually arrive at the wedding ceremony to be married. So that in and of itself is interesting. And so this has been going on for 19 seasons, I think. I'm watching season 19 right now. And so far 10 episodes have come on Peacock. And I think the next episodes will be Decision Day, and Decision Day is when the couples make a decision. Do they stay married or do they get divorced? So that's where we are now. So I've watched it before. I've watched a few seasons, not all of them. I think the last season I watched was Boston or something, which was crazy. Crazy. But I enjoy reality TV shows on occasion. I think I got into it during the pandemic. But this one was interesting because, the couples don't pick each other based on looks or what they know about each other. Love is Blind is like a blind dating show, but they still talk to each other and date. But, yeah, so it's an interesting concept for sure. And based on some of the seasons, I would have been like, I don't know if I would, but I could possibly trust these people to match me up. But based on some other seasons, I'm like, absolutely not. Not trusting these people. But anyway. So this season, there were 5 couples. 2 kind of older couples, which was nice. And 3 more in the 20s and 30s. So they did a little mix there. And they're all very different. And the season has gone kind of interestingly. Like, the people who were doing well in the beginning kind of are not doing as well now, which is interesting. But anyway, so the five couples are Belynda and Chad, and Belynda and Chad, and Jalyn and Josh. So Jalyn and Belynda are daughter and mother. I don't remember that being a thing before, but it's nice that they have each other to go through the experience with. But Belynda and Chad, in the beginning, they were, pretty amiable. They seem to get along. They seem to enjoy each other's company. Belynda seems a little more reserved, but she also seems open and reserved at the same time, which is interesting. She had been married before, divorced. The husband didn't show a lot of affection apparently, and so she was really interested in romantic gestures and times. And Chad, I think, has learned how to give that to her, be romantic. Now Chad has been married like 4 times, he said, which is a bit much in my opinion. So I don't think he went into like what went wrong in those other relationships, but if I was Belynda, I would be interested in knowing that history, because 4 times, 1, even 2, but 4 is crazy. But anyway, they seem to be doing well. In the beginning, they were doing well, and up until episode 10, I think they are still doing pretty well. So nothing really too exciting about that couple. So Jalyn and Josh, Jalyn, who's Belynda's daughter, and Josh had very different backgrounds growing up. Jalyn grew up in a 2-parent household, grew up kind of, having money to do things around, sports and other extracurricular activities, and grew up with friends and siblings. And Josh was kind of the opposite. He grew up a little without a lot of money, grew up with his grandmother, didn't know his father until the week before his wedding, which is interesting. And just generally didn't have a lot of family to be around when he was growing up. So they came from kind of different backgrounds. But in the beginning, it seemed that they were getting along really well. They liked each other right away. They seemed to be, attracted to each other very well. So all seemed to be going well for them. Josh is kind of maybe a little bit of a thrill seeker, or someone who, likes to challenge themselves and do things kind of out of the ordinary, while Jalyn likes to be on the ground and indoors and things like that. So from the beginning, Josh was, encouraging Jalyn to do different things that may or may not have been in her comfort zone, and Jalyn was going along. She was going on little nature adventures and jumping out of boats, and they even went skydiving. But a few episodes in, it became kind of an issue with him being obsessed with Burning Man, the festival, and his wedding gift to her, before even getting to know her, was tickets to Burning Man. So Burning Man is like a week-long festival in the desert where you have to camp and I mean, there's music and stuff, but, you know, there's no indoor plumbing, and you're just out there, which, you know, doesn't sound like a lot of fun for a lot of people. But for some people, you know, they love it. So it came to a head where Jalyn was like, Josh, I do not want to go to Burning Man. And you're just going to have to deal with that. And he kind of like was kind of upset about that. He couldn't understand why. He's like, why wouldn't you even try it? He's like, this is my community. I mean, how is it your community if it's just for a week? And if it's your community, then just go. That was her thing. She didn't say he can't go to Burning Man. She said, I do not want to go to Burning Man. But he was like, well, I want to be able to do this with my partner. Okay. So they were kind of arguing back and forth about that. But by the end of episode 10, it seems like maybe they are back on a good spot. They both kind of cried a little bit and let out their feelings. But it seems like they're, you know, they're in a good spot. So we'll see what happens in Decision Day. Another couple is Rhonda and Pat. Rhonda and Pat are older. I think late 50s, early 60s. Oops. Rhonda has been married before, as well as Pat, which is a common theme for older people. Okay, that's the wrong side. Oops. And at first, like at the wedding, Rhonda was very enthusiastic, very energetic. She was loving it. She gave a lot of energy, a lot of good energy. Pat, who's a little more reserved, was like kind of shell-shocked, but he was enjoying it, her energy, and they jumped in a pool in their wedding attire, and they just seemed to be having some fun together in the beginning. So that was good. And they seemed to be getting along well. Pat had great things to say about Rhonda. Rhonda had good things to say about Pat. But early on, Rhonda let Pat know that she didn't feel like he was really asking as many questions about her as she would have liked. She wants him to be interested in her and to take an interest in her life, which I can understand, because whenever she would say something, Pat would do a comeback with like, oh yeah, we used to do that all the time, or oh yeah, I guess my dad used to do that too, and no follow-up questions. I mean, he was listening, but he wasn't like following up with questions about her in particular, but just in general, he was following the conversation, but not to her liking. So she let him know that, and I think Pat took it very well. He listened. He said, okay, that makes sense. I'll work on it. But, over time, I guess Pat wasn't doing a good enough job for Rhonda. And she kept having to remind him. And, she would want to talk about her experience, her life, at very interesting moments, and expect him to be fully paying attention. And if he got something wrong, she's like, well, there you go again. You don't care. You're not listening to me. So Rhonda is, probably getting on Pat's nerves, and Pat let her know. At one point, he's like, I feel like you tested me. I feel like you were, at any point, you're testing me, and I don't like it. I don't like it. So I'm glad he said something because, you know, as a viewer, we're all like, dang, Rhonda, can you give a dude a break? And why does it always have to be about you? And she's like asking him, you know, they went out to like a little music thing, and that was her community and her people, and she was quizzing him. Okay, so what did you learn about me? You know, my interactions. What did you learn about me in this experience? And he was like, that you like music? Like, what do you want me to say? She's like, no, what does it tell you about my character? And I'm like, is he in school? Is he supposed to be given a pop quiz every other day? So I kind of feel his pain, but I think, you know, I think that Rhonda is kind of asking a bit much. Not in terms of him showing interest, but her approach. Like you mentioned it, but also understand that some moments, I don't know. It's like, let's have a conversation, and then later, if I say, you remember when I told you about my dad and blah, 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 and he's like, nah, and then, you know, make a mental note, be like, oh, snap, he ain't listening now. But to just keep harping on it, and also, I don't feel like she takes a lot of interest in him. And of course, you know, seeing it as a viewer, the editing doesn't allow for you to see every interaction or every conversation. So we don't know what they talk about off camera. But based on what I see, Rhonda is kind of making it all about her and none about Pat. Okay? So their relationship has kind of regressed, in my opinion. Like, it started off really well. They seem to be really into each other, very excited about being together, and now, you know, some issues have come up and it's kind of the same thing. It's not different. So we'll see how that turns out. Let's talk about Brittany and Will. Brittany and Will are the only black couples on this season, and this season is based in Austin, Texas. So Brittany and Will, only black couple. You know, I'm always looking at them to see how well they get matched up, and I really believe that the experts bank on or try their hardest on one couple. Like, one couple is like, you know what, this is actually gonna work. This is really gonna work. But this couple, I don't think that they were this couple for this season. Brittany seemed very interested in the whole process, seemed very excited about being married. She was talking about how her sister, who unfortunately passed away, was married but didn't have a wedding ceremony. And so this would be kind of like a wedding ceremony for her family. And she's always wanted to be married. And so she's very excited. And Will, from his interviews, I couldn't tell why he wanted to be married. Now, I also believe, based on past seasons, that sometimes maybe they don't have enough applicants, and the producers will go maybe looking for people to match with people who actually are interested. And maybe Will was one of those people that they pulled off the street and like, hey, don't you want to get married on camera to somebody you don't know? Doesn't that sound fun? Like, I don't know if they get extra incentives. But anyway, Will didn't seem that particularly interested in getting married. So in the beginning, it seemed like they were both pleased with, you know, appearance wise and things like that. And that, you know, they might get along. But based on Will's demeanor, I didn't see him being very interested in Brittany or the process in general. It seemed like Will was just there, and it wasn't like he was like necessarily unhappy or uncooperative with the process, but he wasn't like participating a lot. He was just kind of there. You know what I mean? He wasn't happy, he wasn't sad, he was just there. And Brittany, she was very enthusiastic, ready to get this party started. She's like, this is my husband now. We're gonna be in love. It's gonna be great. And you know, she's got a lot of emotions attached with this and a lot of expectations. Now, that is one thing about what I've observed from Brittany, is that she does have like expectations in her head about what the process should be like, how Will should act towards her, or her husband should act towards her, and how everything is supposed to go in the process. Maybe she's watched past seasons and she's like, okay, at the honeymoon we're gonna do this, in 2 weeks we're gonna do this. So she's got frustrated even on the honeymoon at kind of the lack of communication from Will, which I agree, but also the lack of progress. Like, I think she wanted to like really bond and feel a connection at the honeymoon, but that did not happen. Will is very stoic, you know, and very like, stoic and not a lot of emotions like Brittany, and that frustrated. Also, Will does not answer questions. So she asks like pretty direct questions of Will, like, you know, what do you like in a partner? What you know, what can I do to make you happy? And he's like, well, you know, I'll do, you know, those things are important to you, but you know, I could do those things. And she's like, what things? I asked you what you like. And he didn't have an answer. And that frustrated me too. So in the beginning, you know, I was like, dang, Will is not really giving us what we need, or giving her what we need, and in turn the audience what we need. So he's just like, and then she would get upset and he would just be like, I don't know, I didn't do anything. He didn't see anything wrong with how things were going. So Brittany was very frustrated in the beginning, and 10 episodes in, she's even more frustrated. She has come to the thought that maybe Will doesn't even like her. And I mean, I think it could be different things. It could be Will is just a very reserved or a very like unmoved person in terms of feelings and liking somebody, and he'll just go with the flow. You know, he's cool with anything. Or he doesn't really like her, or is not even interested in marriage, and he's just going along for the ride until decision day. I think it's number 2, because while he's very on the clips that I've seen, he's very like stoic and nonchalant, when they visited her family, he lit up. He was like, hey, he was smiling, laughing, eating chicken. And I'm like, where is that guy all the time? So then I was like, okay, maybe I see what Brittany's saying, because he's having a good time at the little kickback. So I just don't know. But, you know, he shows affection on camera. You know, hugging and holding hands and things of that nature to reassure her. And he says he doesn't bring up things that might upset her. So I think he's just trying to bide his time until it's time to get out of there. Those are my thoughts. And I think Brittany does feel some of that, like, you know, I don't think he likes me. I don't think it's going well. And she already decided that she wants to be with this guy, which I don't understand that. You know, Brittany should be vetting him as much as he's vetting her. Like, don't just be like, all right, they married us, this is the guy. Like, it doesn't seem like they have anything in common. Like, it doesn't seem like they talked about their common interests or what they like about each other. It's just Brittany was married and she's like, this is it. We're here. Let's do this. So, I don't know. I feel bad for Brittany. But I also think she is putting up with, I don't know, she's kind of putting up with nonchalant behavior because she wants to make this work, but she's also like nagging him a little bit to get at his real feelings and like trying to ask him what you know, what's gonna happen on decision day. You ain't supposed to know what's gonna happen on decision day. You gonna know on decision day, okay? But she just wants to know where they are because she, you know, doesn't have a good feeling. So, at the end of the last episode, she was crying. And people, like the other couples, were trying to console her, which was nice of them. But, yeah, I don't think... And then Will didn't even seem to care. Like, Will wasn't going after her or trying to see what he did wrong or anything, what was wrong with her. So, I don't know about that one. Then Meghann and Derek. Meghann, at first, seemed very defensive, very offended at the simplest of questions, which I don't understand why you get offended if someone asks you a question, they getting to know you. And she's like, well, anybody that knows me knows this, this, and this. Girl, he don't know you. Derek seems like an easygoing guy as well. Seems like he was actually interested in the process, interested in being married and starting a family. Well, that's all he can talk about, is starting a family and having 3 kids. You know, like, guys want all these kids and they don't have to do anything related to carrying and birthing a baby. I mean, that's just how it is, but sometimes guys think, oh shoot. It's 30 minutes. Oops. Oh, it's this one. Cool. That was 30 minutes. All right, I'm gonna finish this dart and then we'll be done. Okay, I think I made progress. But anyway, guys want all these kids and they ain't gotta do much. So I can understand Meghann being like, I'll do one and then I will see later. Like, don't push me. I can understand that. But at first they were having trouble communicating because she took offense to any little question about her and you know, things that he wanted to know or he was concerned about. But eventually, by the end, they seemed to be getting along well. And it was revealed that they are pregnant, which I don't remember that ever happening before. So, at the end of the day, I have thoughts about who is going to say what. I think Meghann and Derek will say yes, both say yes. I think Brittany will say yes and Will say no. I think Jalyn and Josh. I think Jalyn's changing her mind about Josh. I think she's seeing like some troubling things that she doesn't necessarily like. So unless they can come to some kind of agreement, I think Jalyn's gonna say no. I think Chad will say yes. And I think Belynda will say yes too. She seems nonchalant, but she also seems like she kind of likes Chad. So I think they'll both say yes. And I think Pat should say no. And I think Rhonda might say no too. Okay, so in 30 minutes, I marked my darts and I sewed 2 darts. Okay. And so I just have to sew these other darts and the rest should go a little quicker than that. Okay, so that was my first sew and chat. Let me know in the comments what topic I should talk about next. I probably will do a follow-up to Married at First Sight after decision day. But if there are any other topics, like any shows you're watching, any movies or music you're into, I love to discuss. All right, peace.